attacked and the attacker are literally the same. Everyone who body shames you are also people who are victims at certain points in time in their lives. We only pass on our misery. We can't differentiate between one young person and another young person. They all have wear the same kind of clothes, all have the same kind of hair. They listen to the same kind of music.
Yep.
We're just manufacturing a particular kind of look, and then you want to stay with that look. And the pressure to stay in that lane is so big with the young. This is your friend, this is your home. You can't keep bad-mouthing your home. The starting point is just knowing that you're not alone. Why this book is a book on in mental health, and why this book is about body positivity is because if you are rooted in being strong about who you are, there's only so much you will take. After a point, you know that this is not okay. If you don't know this, it's because you have not that has not been grounded and not been strengthened. And that is the role of a parent. I honestly feel more than intervention in how you're constantly looking and very silent. My mother was very friendly person, talking all the time. My father is very quiet. The quietness comes from him. So I'm also not a person who will chatter. I will watch and observe, and I'm constantly looking at human nature, constantly imagining this person and wondering what their life backstory is. So I'm also doing that like my father.
In this episode of Discovery of an Author, we sit down with Vinitha. Vinitha has edited and compiled an incredible book, Hug Yourself, which contains 14 stories by 14 other female writers and authors on the topic of body positivity. This was a very interesting conversation in which we discussed not just what is body positivity, but also what is body shaming, where does it originate from, how does it impact the young girls and boys of the entire society, and specifically the Indian society. In this episode, you'll get to know the very ugly truth and the reality of body shaming, the impact it can have on a young child growing up, and how empathy and compassion and kindness and acceptance are the key to addressing body shaming and turn that into body positivity. Stay tuned till the end to this episode, and the learnings that you'll get would be absolutely incredible. Also, if you like this episode, then I humbly request you to please like and subscribe. This is the only way in which we can grow our podcast and get more and more authors and share these amazing philosophies and stories to you. Thank you. Vinitha, hi. Welcome to Discovery of an Author podcast.
It's amazing to be here. Thank you for having me, Raghav.
Vinitha, I, always, before starting the podcast, there is a tradition that I follow. There is something which I say, and I have to do the same thing over here also because I really mean what I'm about to say. This podcast exists because of authors like you. We are secondary. The primary hero of a podcast are you guys, the authors who have written books. If you guys won't be there, this podcast wouldn't exist at all. We are just banking on your knowledge, on your success, on your talent. So I always tell the authors that you guys are the giants on whose shoulders we are just trying to stand and make sense of the world. So this entire podcast, this entire concept, everything that we're doing is dedicated to you. So thank you again for accepting this thing. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate storytellers. I mean, this what we're doing is just one way. It's like our love letter to the authors out there, that continue to do what you guys are doing. We need storytellers in today's time. We need people to write amazing stuff. We need you guys to inspire people. Specifically in the social media times that we are living in, wherein everything is instantaneous, everything is very provocative, everything is very, out there, so it's very important for people to produce great literature. And that is what you guys are doing. So this entire concept is dedicated to you, Vinitha.
And what could we be doing without little people doing elfish work like you guys are doing?
Absolutely.
Putting us out there, So I think it's the whole ecosystem. Writing is just one part of it. Putting the stories is just one part of it. Bringing the stories out, and through podcasts, through literature festivals, to people talking about it. If this work wasn't being done in a world where information is so like an ocean, to put that out there is amazing work. So thank you for the work that you are doing too.
Vinitha, I want to start this podcast with a highlight. This is a poem that was in Hills of Valleys of Nangeli by Vidya Nesarikar.
Yes.
So this is the poem goes like this. Am I breast attached to a body or a body attached to breast? Don't you see? The red earth is in me. Hills and valleys, oceans and rivers, cracks and crevices, a deep dark pit you only pretend to understand. Tear them off. Bleed to death, but you still fail to see. You dig, plunder, extract, and loot. You corner me, point fingers at me. Say fault lines lead to catastrophe. Can the ocean be contained? This is my body, my proud chest nurturing life. Spit and blood and sweat. Skin that taste of salt. Scars and folds. The way the river bends. You ask me to conform. I will not, I will not, I will not. Such a powerful composition. This was so beautiful. When I read, I thought about it a lot. And I could feel how it was written, what it wanted to convey. And the book is full of so many highlights and examples that truly blow me away in terms of what this issue is and why it needs to be addressed and what people do go through, specifically teenagers, right? So I think that is something, this book is the need of the hour, and I'm really glad you wrote it. I'm gonna ask you the first question straight away. And let's see where we can go with that, okay? For those who are unaware, Vinitha, can you define body positivity? What is body positivity? Not a lot of people do know about it, and people have a lot of confusions around the terminology of body positivity. So I want you to define it. You can define it from a pure definition perspective, and then you can generalize it as well, the way you want to deem fit.
Body positivity, if I give you definition, and I think I don't want to get into that space, it is a frame of mind about your body. Being absolutely happy and accepting of who you are, how you are. That is what I call body positivity. And before I even get into what body positivity is, I want to talk about vulnerability. You know, uh, being dark skinned or being overweight or being having hair in a particular way or being too hairy. None of this is about certain qualities that we have. If you feel bad about the particular your skin color, if you feel bad about your size, your height, whether you're big breasted or you have no breasts, or if you are too hairy or you have hair fall issues, if you feel bad about it, then you are victim, then you will be body shamed all your life. So, I think this is such a hard question to ask in a time where we're all struggling with mental health issues. And knowing who you are and how you feel about yourself is such an important starting point to build for all of us, especially teenagers, for multiple reasons. And I think one of the things that we want to talk, and body positivity is something that I think is we challenged through all our lives. It never ends. I think it never ends, actually. And when we were doing sessions about the book, we had adults in the audience, and somebody asked us that what's the answer to this? And I'm answering your question in a roundabout way, but the reason why I'm answering your question is that it's so hard to actually define what positivity is, other than actually oversimplifying and saying that if you feel positively about who you are, how you are, that is body positivity. And nobody can touch you. Nobody can make you feel, there is no weak points for which you can be attacked. Because in the armor that we're clad with, if you are wearing the armor of I'm amazing, and it's not an armor, it is actually believing that, then nothing can touch you. And that is so important to build, because we need to build that as an awareness. We need to build it because when you look at research tells you that the most harm is caused in the home.
Yes.
When it comes to body positivity, body imaging. It isn't the world outside. It isn't your first, second row of people, whether it's your classmates or or your relatives, it's the first primary caregiver that is the starting point of all body shaming, which happens probably through the nicest of intention, but it's there. And it's also intergenerational. You know, we pass it on from, if we don't deal with it, we're passing it on to our children are going to pass it on to their children. And so creating that kind of awareness and and being body positive and being mentally healthy and emotionally healthy is so important.
So you mentioned about that, people are attacked because of the way their body is not supposed to be, as against what people think the body should be like. I want to ask
Right.
you a very deep question over here. I don't know how to frame this thing, but I'm going to be very direct with this thing. Those who do attack the ones they feel are inadequate in their own skin or body, do you think that those themselves feel that they are adequate and they have the right to attack and they have the right to judge and then they have the right to standardize this thing? I want to understand, how do you justify your own attacks on somebody whom you deem not to be fit? Where does that angle come from? How do you differentiate between the prey and the predator?
There is no difference. There are no. It isn't bipolar. It isn't like two ends of the spectrum. The attacked and the attacked and the attacker are literally the same. You know, I feel that everyone who body shames you or who cast aspersions about how you look or make you feel miserable or how you feel are also people who are victims at 100% are victims at certain points in time in their lives. We only pass on our misery. Like, everything is infected, right? Your good cheer is also, how you feel about yourself. It makes many people feel positive. And if you feel, if you've been body shamed or if somebody's hurt you, that wounding causes other you to wound other people. That is why I say it's intergenerational. That is why I say, sometimes you just can't help it. It happens at homes because somebody has told my mother or my father a particular thing, which you can't help it but pass it on. So I keep telling people, and I've been told this: if I'm walking with a cup of coffee and I bump into you, what is going to come out of that cup of coffee? It's not going to be Pepsi, it's not going to be water. Coffee is going to come out. So we pass on our shame to other people. It just magnifies and passes on and moves out there. So the person who bullies has been bullied somewhere, has probably being bullied at present too. And we pass it on to people who we feel powerful to act. So the adult world is very powerful towards children. You can say anything, the child can't say anything back. And we don't realize that we're passing on wounds that at some point when it gets so much, that child will go out in the world and find somebody else who is powerless and will pass it on to that person. It can happen, your strength can come in groups, it will come single-handedly. And today we have the internet where you can be anonymous and you can be one vague name and you can say what you want to anyone you want. So you're constantly spilling what has been spilled onto you. So it can just keep going on. Sometimes it doesn't, it's so hard to contain it. Which is why the exercise in empathy is so important. And one of the ways to have an empathetic exercise is to know other stories and to know people suffer and to know that wounding happens. I may say very carelessly, hey, fatty, shut up. And not even think about it. The person who's been told that is holding on for a long, long time. And, for instance, I shouldn't even say that, but both my kids tell me that I was the first person to body shame them. And so I would never, and I think I am so careful about it because I have also been body shamed as all my childhood, all my adolescence, including my adult years. And I am so careful about being kind and empathetic to people. Why would I even think of doing it to my children? But I have, and it must have been a careless remark. You know, I'm saying it must have been because I don't remember, because my wounding, me wounding my own precious children has happened. And they tell me now, because they're able to process it, because they're able to feel safe saying that to me today, that, the first person who made me feel helpless about the way I am is you. And I'm like, what, where, how, you know? Yeah, so yeah, but the long, hard answer to this is that we need to look at ourselves. We
I
need to
think
look at what's going on in our world.
you're absolutely right. Say, I'll tell you what I feel. I'll give you my personal example.
Right.
Growing up, I was a very fat child. I was a single child. My
Right.
mother and like all the the mothers, they have been very very over pampering in terms of the food. Apparently in
Yes.
India, because we initially belonged from a very poor country, because we just came out of poverty and misery, and it was very difficult to
Right.
sustain ourselves. Having a lot of food to eat, and eating a lot of food was a sign of ki, okay, we have money. Food, you
Prosperity.
eat, yeah,
Yeah.
prosperity, we need to eat a lot of food. I belong from a northern belt, and over here it's very much ki, okay, we are from that khate pite wali family. That means ki we are from that strong family. So mothers always used to be like, eat and eat and eat. I was an overweight child. As far as I could remember, I was a fat kid. I remember when I was in first year of my college or second year of my college, I was 103 kgs. And I used to get rejected by all the girls that I used to approach. And I used to know the reason why I'm getting rejected. That's why. I was in seventh class. We used to go
Right.
to the local school swimming pool. So the coaches used to train us for swimming. I was very new to it. One day he called me. He's like,
Mm.
"Ki, come over here." And then he said in Hindi, and I'm going to translate that. He said, "Is mote ko to deep mein phek do." So what he was trying to say, ki, let's push the fatty in the
Push
deep
in the deep
waters.
end.
And he pushed me, and I somehow survived that incident. I
Yeah, the
survived, and
deep
I came
end.
out of it. Seventh class. From seventh till I was in second year, must have been
Right.
what, 10, 15 years, right? For
Yes.
10, 15 years, this issue of me being fat, this issue of people calling me mota, 15 years it didn't get addressed because there was no knowledge, there was no ecosystem, there was no support group. I didn't even know what is empathy.
Yes.
Forget body shaming. Forget,
Right.
I grew up in those 15 years knowing that there is something wrong with me. It
And
absolutely.
if you don't address it, and if you pass it on in ignorance, it's not because you want to hurt somebody because you've been hurt, but it's in absolute ignorance that it's done. And how is it? How are we containing this? How are we understanding that somebody's life is going to change so much because of one unkind thing that you said, like for a very, very long time. So one of the exercises that one does with in even in the space of empathy is like getting the bullied and the bully together and asking, how did you feel? Asking the bully, how did you feel when you pushed this boy and call him whatever? And asking the person who was bullied, how did you feel to get pushed? Right? And just hearing both stories, because the exercise of hearing both stories is such a very powerful exercise where the bully actually says, I don't know, I did it because, and when you dig into that, you'll find out why there was a because as to why I pushed this kid who did nothing to me, he was terrified of me, and I called him names and I pushed him and I took his tiffin. I'm talking of a school incident, random school incident. And how did you feel good about it? How long did you feel good about it? Did you feel bad? How did you feel bad? And not judging either stories. So the point of doing a book is that just telling stories. I did not know that in my world, uh, for instance, just being dark skinned it means I cannot be loved. I cannot be loved because I'm dark skinned, right? To know that somebody who fair skinned also felt like they can struggle through it, or to know that there are multiple vulnerabilities, and then to connect the dots and realize that even in my generation, where a dark skinned girl um, could have felt that she would never be accepted by somebody to fall in love with, or to have a relationship, or to have a friendship, uh, you know, actually changes the entire axis of someone's life. And to know that this is not the only universe, there are multiple universes and multiple people with vulnerabilities. And then I also realized that there were other dark skinned girls in my class, in my school. I don't know if they experienced life the way I did. There are other overweight kids in my classroom. I don't know I know for a fact that one of the bullies was an overweight girl, and I don't remember anyone having the courage to go and tell her, "Hey, fatty," because you'd be dead. Because she wasn't it felt like she wasn't bothered about her weight. But somewhere her bullying is indicative of the fact that she was also being bullied at somewhere, and she was passing it on to another powerless space. It's the hierarchy of power and powerlessness. And this is the space that we have, that we keep passing it on. And we need to tell stories. Unfortunately, so there are three, four things right now. One is, why did we do book for teenagers? There's a whole reason why we're doing a book for teenagers. Why didn't we do for younger children? Why haven't we done it for older people? Because in the span of life, at every stage, the life has been is a whole has brings with its own challenges and comes, right? But why did we do a book for teenagers? Why did we do it for younger? So there's a whole story for that also. Having said that, we are in a space of absolute technological boom, a social media boom, information explosion, and information like nothing else. There is a whole lot of activism happening on body positivity. There are activists and influencers in the space who have massive followings. There are shifts in this space. At the same time, because the technology brings with another problematic thing, and the problematic thing is that I consume one kind of information, and the algorithm is made such that it only gives you that information. I don't know that there are multiple universes and at multiple kinds of vulnerabilities happening over there. Just because I'm struggling with skin color or with hair or with body weight or whatever, I think that everyone is in the world is pro or against it. The knowledge that there are multiple universes and the fact that it's streamlined information coming to you, and therefore we don't know multiple stories. And the world is full of multiple stories. For every situation, there are 1,000 different nuanced stories of that struggle or that victory. Victories also, those stories are not being told. And therefore, this book is just for starting point of conversations. The fact that you and I are talking about it, the fact that someone will listen to it and somebody will go and find out and make a conversation, probably read the book or not read the book, it doesn't matter. The fact that this conversation happened and somebody listening to it has stayed in the podcast for this long, it means that it means something to them. In a world where our attention spans are getting smaller and smaller and smaller, to stay into that story too. And this is what the work you're doing, right? Connecting to the author, because then you would be more invested in that story, because that becomes your story as well. You relate to it in that way.
Absolutely agree with you. There is this highlight which actually hit me really hard. And I was about to ask this question on later stage, but I think since we are around the topic, I think I first need to make that highlight. It's very hard hitting. Huh? I'll just have to, I'll read it again. Okay.
Right.
So this is from This Isn't Fair by Santini
Right.
Govindan. Really hit me
Yes.
hard. Huh? Amma Amma signed. Is it am I pronouncing it wrong? It's Amma Amma, right? Amma, yeah. Or
It's
is it
Amama.
Amma?
It's Amama.
Amamma.
Amama is grandmother in Malayalam.
Grandmother, huh?
Yes.
Amma, yeah.
Yes.
Amamma.
Yes.
Amamma's
mother.
side. So Amamma is speaking to her with her granddaughter. Amamma's side.
Granddaughter.
I think I brought these Uptons, which is a body lotion, just
Yes.
in time. She said with a stern expression, In fact, when I saw you, I was surprised to see the color of your skin. She said frankly to Shreya, you are as dark as a crow. And I don't think that your burnt skin looks attractive at all. So I really want readers to first just, we were discussing, Vinitha, the first thing that you said, that this originates from the houses, from the home, from the loved ones, intentionally or unintentionally. Though I can debate the intentional or the unintentional part by reading this highlight, because it was so direct. And maybe Amamma thought that what she's saying is in the benefit of her granddaughter, or what she's saying is very imperative. Now, there are multiple questions around this highlight. Okay. One is, do you truly believe that in majority of the incidents, such issues wherein somebody is shaming someone for a specific type of a body, be it the color, be it the hair, be it the belly, or anything, originates from the homes and the houses? And
Agree.
second part of the question, do you really feel that Indians, we as a generation, we are very obsessed with the fair skin? Maybe because of that we were colonized by people who were fair skinned, and because we as a nation put a lot of emphasis on girls being marriageable ready, and that is why they feel that if you do not have a fair skin, so your chances of being accepted as a bride by a potential groom who might be very wealthy or from a good family is low. So I want to first address the part wherein if you really feel that these things do originate from houses and the homes also, and then
Absolutely.
I want
There's
to
no
go
two
more
ways
into the
about it.
psychological part of this entire geography
It
in which
is.
we are living in.
It is starts from home. And if Amama said this to Shreya, it's because someone told Amama this. And Amama has also been hearing it from everyone in the neighborhood. And Amama's intention, I don't question about. And this is a fictional character, right? I'm still not questioning that. But I know that at some point in time, with all the good intentions, and the marriage market is a market. It is that, right? If I've chosen to go through the traditional way of looking for a groom or for a bride, then the set of things that they're looking for, there is a set of things, and color is makes for a girl is in India to date is a theme. I have sat through my niece's, marriage thing. Somebody coming to see her, she's not there, and my mother, and that is my niece's grandmother, and that party who's come, which is the groom's party. They're discussing the shade of darkness, how dark and how fair she is. It's insane, but it is the way it is. For I think color is not just colonial. I think we've had a thing about color way before that. I think so, and I could be wrong. I think it's a very caste thing. I think that, we came to the Aryans came and invaded and took over. The Vedic system came from the Aryans, who were actually uh, came from up north, and they had different features. And the features that the Dravidians had, so it's an Aryan Dravidian thing, according to me. And the Dravidians, who had a very rich culture, were dark-skinned Negroids. And if you look at the way the continent shifts, it's actually the shift in continent. It's nothing to do with India, but it became about this whole thing about being dark and fair. And way before way before the Portuguese came and the Britishers came and or before that the French came, before the Dutch came, we've been invaded so many times over. But way before that, I think we had a color thing. You can look at our mythological books, Amar Chitrakatha, how the asuras look and how the gods look, devas look. It's so we have a color in our country, and fair is good, black is dark skinned people are bad people. And it's about being lower caste. It's about being poor. It's a lot of myth that has been perpetuated through Vedic texts. A lot of rules that were created by Brahmin about how people look. So it's very deep rooted. We should not even get into that subject right now. But yes, as a culture, we have a thing about color. I grew up never believing I could be loved. Imagine. I'm just thinking, where did that thought come from? Just because my skin is this color, nobody can ever love me. The starting point of every personal decision I made came from that space of not good enoughness. The starting point of professional mistakes that I've made came from that not good enoughness. The fact that I cannot negotiate for a particular salary despite my qualification being way better than anybody else's is because I came from a space of not good enoughness at one point in time in my life. It influenced every single part of my life. My believing that I cannot be loved. I'm not going to be good enough. So anything you offer me, I will take it. A friendship, a job, I will take it because, oh my God, you gave it to me. You actually want me to work for you. You actually want me to be a friend. I'll be your friend. It doesn't matter who you are, whether I want to be your friend or not, whether I think I can get a better job or not. It starts like this, and which is why you need to strengthen that I'm amazing. and be objective about who you are. Be objective about who you are. I come with the X qualifications. I should be getting X salary, and I should be moving to the next thing. And I'm jumping a lot of things, and I'm just giving you examples. But I'm saying it starts from just I'm not good enough, and look at what repercussions it can have.
No,
Believing that I should
absolutely.
become.
Yeah, I can truly understand the repercussion that it can happen. As you said, it is an issue that has been unaddressed or that gets unaddressed for many a years, that cultivates into something which is so deep that you need more than just empathy to get out of that. You need community,
Yes,
you need sangha, you need a lot of things of people who can support you,
yes,
who can understand you, who can
absolutely,
bring you out of it.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
very important, you need resources to be created around this ecosystem. No ecosystem can thrive and grow and evolve if resources are not getting created around that. And
Very
this
true.
this now brings me up to a very important question. Body positivity, as we were discussing about these things, right? Whilst when I was growing up, or all my friends who girls also were growing up, we had no idea about such
Right.
a things. We had no idea
Yeah.
about the terminology. We had no idea about the movement and all that jazz. Okay. I want to know from you, how did the body positivity movement picked up steam in terms of awareness? Where did it come from, and when did it came to India?
I don't want to get into the history of body positivity. Its cycle has been, not linear. But I think one of the things that it became really big as a movement was when consumerism and capitalism became part of India. So we were consuming a lot of things. We anyway believe we're not good enough. So anything that is global is something that we can think about. So the minute black women were modeling, it became, oh, black women can model. So it started the I think the fashion industry and the fact that we had foreign magazines coming in, we were reading, and we had access to that. The middle class had access to a lot of things that were happening in terms of fashion across the world, and that definitely changed the way we looked at the body. The traditional beauty idea of beauty was a buxom woman who was fair color and fair skin and had long wavy hair, long wavy hair. So she would have to have
Vinita, I'm so
her
sorry. What
idea
is
of
a
beauty was
what is a buxom? What did you say? What word did you use?
big, big breasted
Acha, acha. Okay,
women, buxom women. So
okay.
buxom women were considered as a sign of beauty.
Yeah.
Wide hipped because it meant you were childbearing
Bear child.
capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah, big breasted, wide hipped women were fair skinned and who had long wavy hair. Hair is long up to their knees is considered a sign of beauty. People raved about it. No longer could, uh, if you looked at just publishing, how the magazines were started coming out, right? The cover girl on the magazine. If you just look at the history of these cover girls of magazines, that we slowly, you know, I remember at when I was growing up, when I was probably 20 years old, a lot of the men I worked I work in publishing, and all the men who were making the covers were saying, "Kya, what women are we putting up here?" They still wanted the same ideal of the buxom, fair skin, long haired woman on the cover of magazines, where the savvy magazines started coming. Femina Savvy was competing with Cosmopolitan. They had to change the cover. They had to compete globally, right? And so the model started changing. The model needed to be tall now. So today's model don't need to have, we who want big-eyed women with big breasts and long hair no longer want to have that. And looking at the bone structure, you're looking at the length of the woman's legs, and you're looking at hair which is straight. And so the fashion industry, entertainment industry, the fact that we are consuming a lot of uh, foreign narratives is the start of a lot of change in the movement of how standards of how women are supposed to look. Parallelly to all of this, parallelly to the world opening up and us getting access to information, the world of protest also was going on all over the world. And so protests came to India. It's not like we did not protest. And a lot of work was done with the Fair and Lovely movement, or dark skin actresses like standing up, and a lot of advertising companies also having dark skin models. But while we also have this, I must tell you, we also have actresses like Rekha and Kajol who are looking absolutely fair. And you know that they have done something because they don't accept themselves for the color they are. So there are two parallel universes going, where the change is happening both places. In one place there's change happening, in one place there's no change happening. The all the signs, all the things that we need to be beautiful, all the terror that goes into staying within the structure that that the new universe is dictating as to standards of beauty, that is still there. And there is activism also happening. Unfortunately, you can be a consumer of anything. You can consume this part of the universe, which is, it's amazing to look in this particular way. And there's, you have activism universe. You can be there, part of that. Both universes don't meet at any point. There is no exchange of information or struggle. And that is where it becomes so problematic. It's so insular.
See, I'll tell you something what I really feel. This is the second part of the question now. So
Yes.
I now understand what what you did say. My problem, not my problem. I really want to understand this part because somewhere it was mentioned in the book as well. Let's address the elephant in the room, the social media. And
Right.
nowadays, when I say social media, I explicitly mention one application specifically, and that is Instagram.
Hmm.
Marketing agencies, Cosmopolitan magazines, Playboy, your Fair and Lovely advertisements, products. That is one thing.
Right.
Those are industries which are still somewhat centralized in the terms of following processes, understanding the market needs, seeing where we are right now, and then putting out a product. Once they have
Right.
done their due diligence, once it has been passed by many managers and levels, please. So there is a structure. Okay,
Right.
so till a very long time, that structure was defining beauty, standards,
Right.
size, color, XYZ, XYZ, and we followed. But that was still centralized processes.
Hmm.
Now you have Instagram, decentralized. Basically, what is internet? It is decentralized. You have the
Yes.
power to create the content. There are no processes. There is no structure. There is nothing. Okay, if there is an individual who's creating a fashion content on Instagram, these are the set of rules that you need to adhere to. There is nothing like that. There is no passing. There is no validation. There is no scrutiny. There is no
Hmm.
okay, we'll moderate it and then we'll put it out. It has now become decentralized, and the moment it becomes decentralized, you have this purge of content and people, and specifically women and girls and young girls who are um, really exposing majority of their bodies, right? And
Hmm.
when you see these content, it's, I think that is more harmful in the way that girls or boys, they might get insecure about their own bodies, because now
Right.
that it is decentralized, now that you have more number of people who are putting out content and even more number of people who are viewing that content, the level and the spike of insecurity, of not being adequate and not being empathetic shoots up like it has never done before. So I want, and yet I want to give where the credit is due, that yes, these platforms can also be empowering. There's nothing just black and black, right? There's
No,
good
no.
and bad both. I just want to know your raw thoughts and just have a very open discussion about this elephant.
I feel like I feel like it's there. Like I said, I mean, Instagram is just one thing, right? It's like you said, the internet is just open for anyone, everyone to create whatever content you want. Uh, in a way, it is terrifying, and in a way, it is also it also opens up. Like you can choose what you want to see, or how much you want to consume. The world is is made to to only increase discontentment. It's needed. No, otherwise who will buy things? Who will buy products if I don't feel, if I'm completely santushed about who I am, if I'm completely happy about who I am, why will I go and buy any product? Discontentment is, there's a physics and a match to discontentment which we need to generate as a capitalist society, so that people keep consuming and thinking that only when I get this will I feel better. So this is churning from that space. This discontentment needs to constantly be generated so that you never feel happy with who you are and how you are and how you can be, because that's the end of everything then. In this world where everyone is never good enough and struggling and there are no answers, only in this world can I aspire to have that breakthrough moment in my life, which never comes actually. Something else will come in this place. So the places like apps like Instagram are created to keep you hooked into a world which is very engineered, so that you believe you'll never look like this, you'll never be happy, you'll never vacation in a place that has got such blue skies, or will you never have a skin that looks like the way it is. It's engineered to keep you staying dissatisfied, discontented, so that you constantly consume for longer periods of time content and aspire to have that, which is never going to be part of the universe. It's meant to be like that. If you wake up from that and to understand this, does your life change? No, I don't think I'm aware of it. Am I still, is my time in Instagram less? I think not. Unless I choose, I make a say that I'm going to stay off it, or, it's not. And imagine the young who have time. I'm watching people never looking up, constantly down there on their phone, whether you're in a completely crowded local train, whether you're driving an auto and someone's life depends on this. There is on the two-handled auto rickshaw guy's thing, on a rubber band, he's kept his phone and he's plugged in here, and he's in that universe, and he's also doing something in some other universe. So we all are there. Or it's we're in a world where this is going on, but the world is also waking up, and I don't believe it's all so dark. I believe, like you said, this information can be used for some purpose, and it is being used, and people are waking up. People are understanding how much it consumes and how unhappy your life can be, and how discontentment is just um, it's never about moving to contentment. It's just staying discontented, and we have content, we have apps that which hopefully will change, and information will be used the way it ought to be used, and stories will be exchanged, and empathy will increase. I believe that, you know, the flip side to all of this is that this is also a possibility. It's how you use that weapon. You can use it to cut yourself, or you can use it to make make a road. It's up to you. We can't change this. This is not an evil. This is the way we are consuming information. Unfortunately, if I send you something nice to read, which is more than 1 minute long, our attention spans have become so tiny that we can't sit through that. So newspapers and content and everything is also shifting according to this. So we have to know how to work with it, not without it.
Makes sense. Vinitha, I'm going to present with you a hypothetical situation.
Okay.
The Hug Yourself book is obviously the stories are really, really amazing. But I really want people to know and understand, like the way I did after reading the book. The body positivity is not just specific to the girls and their problem, or the teenagers or the young girls. It is prevalent, in all the genders. So I'm
Yeah.
going to give you an example, and let's I'm going to give you a hypothetical situation, and let's see how empathy can come into the picture and what I can really do practically in my life. Let's say I'm a teenage boy. I'm a 14-year-old kid or a boy. I'm in my school. I'm still not in my college. I'm in my 10th, 11th class. I'm in a co-ed
Nine
school.
standard.
I'm in a co-ed school. There are a lot of girls in the school as well. I am someone who's neither in the sports team as a boy, neither I am a musician, nor I can play a guitar, nor do I have great looks. It's basically Raghav when he was in his 10th class. Little bit chubby, little bit fat, mama's boy,
Hmm.
have that water bottle and tiffin with me, and a pop culture junkie all talks about Harry Potter, for example. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have Instagram. I go to Instagram like any other young child. I'll open Instagram. I'll see the photos of models and men who are working out with the biceps and triceps and their abs and their squats and
Right.
their athleticism and everything. I know of my friends who are playing basketball and everything. And I
Right.
look at myself. I look at my naked body when I'm taking a shower. Okay.
Mm.
And I suddenly realize that I am not adequate. That realization, why I'm saying suddenly, because till that time when all these things were not there, I was not aware. It never bothered me. I was
Right.
just a kid. I suddenly realized that I am obese. I suddenly realized that I have a belly, I have a fat, I'm not likable,
Mm.
maybe, and I can never play sports. So many things are hitting me at once, and that is when you realize suddenly, right? Because there's so many parameters that make you realize. What can I do in this situation? How can that Raghav develop empathy?
I feel just knowing that there are other people struggling like you is the first step. Usually, the journey of discontentment is a very lonely journey. You have been told that everybody is amazing, everyone is successful, everyone's doing well. Your best friend is also seems to be a lean guy. Everyone seems to be competent in something or the other, and everyone is fine except you are. Just knowing that this is a minority, that even the people who seem to be, uh, you know, have fallen into the structure of what the society wants you to look at in terms of competence or beauty or their definition of success, even they who you think and from the outside world is successful, quote unquote, even they are struggling. Just knowing that is a great comfort. And knowing that this is a minority, that the people who think they're good enough and they're doing absolutely, their days are just smooth and unbumpy, is absolutely a minority. And I would say hardly anyone. There's not even 1% of people who are there like that. Knowing that is the first comforting factor, because the world wants you to believe that you're the only one who is not fitting in. You're only loved by your family, but everybody thinks you're an ass, that you're stupid, you're ugly, you're useless, you know. And at some point, you're bought into that thing. Knowing that there's a universe out there, that everyone's struggling, is the first step. Knowing that there are other stories, hearing of those stories, finding out if anyone who, like, I would want to know, how did Raghav become the person he is right now? Super confident, good looking guy, standing heading a podcast, and I'm probably doing so much more. How did you? I want to know your story. How did you become who you are? What was the turning point in your life? Asking you, sharing your story, learning that, yeah. The problem with the world is that we only talk of success stories. We don't realize that 1,000 failures and one success, sure. We don't realize that. 1,000 heartbreaks, 1,000 sad, lonely days of complete despair have taken someone out of it and figured how they can get out of it. Hearing those stories, knowing that it's okay, it's everyone's struggling, everyone has bad days. Even that model, I remind myself that the influencer there who's looking absolutely confident in her whatever vulnerability is has her bad days too. She's not always waking up feeling, yes, world, here I am. She's not feeling like that. And she's got 2 million followers, and she doesn't, there are days when she has bad. Knowing these things, this is what kids today don't know and they're struggling with. I have pimples and I cannot be loved because I have pimples. That my skin is pockmarked, and no, every single day I don't want to step out because I am. Nobody can even bother to know that I'm, want to be part of my life or to be a friend. These are the things that despair is a very lonely space. Sadness is a lonely space. It's not community. Community spaces are happy places. If we could share these stories, that is the starting point. Every person's life is different. Everyone's journey is different. Everyone's way to move through that struggle is different. No, there are no answers. Like is 2 plus 2 is not always 4 in this space, at least. This is not math. This is just figuring out who you are. When you know who you are, your answers and also the world will respond to you differently. Everything else will follow. And then your journey can start. Just thinking it's really okay. I'm just having a bad day. Or it's really okay. There are other people who are also struggling like I am. Looking at yourself in the mirror and not judging yourself. That itself takes so much. Every day, wake up morning and only seeing things that nobody else can see actually, because you are dysmorphia is real. Anorexia is real. People are starving themselves to fit into some size. This is not some fiction. It's happening on a daily basis. My mother, my sister, my best friend, everyone's waking up and looking in the mirror and thinking, oh my God, can I come for this podcast looking like this? Is it okay to look like this? Things like that. These are daily struggles. Just being okay with it. Just being able to look at yourself and say, my God, just imagine this body, how much it has done for you. It's time to do for this is your friend. This is your home. You can't keep bad mouthing your home. How does it get you anywhere? But the starting point is just knowing that you're not alone, and it's not like somewhere far away someone's doing a great job on body positivity. The next person is struggling. Is a great starting point according to me.
I think what what really struck me, and I'm still thinking about it, and I think it was very profound what you said, that those people whom you think are perfect are a minority. They are the minority of the minority.
Yes, not
And I,
even 1%.
yeah, and I tell you why I feel that is very profound, because I think this logic applies to all the other aspects of life as well. I give you an example.
Yes, yes,
Sometimes I feel maybe I am not a great dad. I have a 4-year-old son.
yes.
Sometimes I feel I'm not a great dad because let's say I have watched a dad on Instagram who's playing or sprinting with his son, or a dad who's
Mm.
beefed up and who's all jazz, and I'm like, "Oh,
Mm.
wow." You get
That's so
so engrossed and involved into that picture that you sometimes forget that this is a rarity. This is a minority. This is something which could also have been fabricated, right? So I think sometimes we are not able to understand the thin line that is between something that is a rare and something that is inspirational. So for me that was not inspirational, for me that was envious. And then I started thinking that I am the only one who's not a great dad to my son. Okay, now we'll move on to, yes, so we have amazing questions because this is so interesting that we have been touching so many things. Okay,
right.
I mean, so I just, and you can give a very straight answer to this thing, though we have addressed this thing by me also giving my own example. Do you think being a woman as against men are more on the receiving end of body shaming because all the stories are also of the teenage girls? Do you, from a statistical point of view, do you feel that yes, and also from a biological point of view, do you feel that yes, biologically as well, from the way the genders are made or created or they are biologically, maybe girls or young girls or the female gender is maybe more on the side of being body shamed either by their own family or peers or friends or groups or communities? So I really wanted to just touch this topic as well.
I feel very sad answering this question because I want to tell you that yes, girls are the only ones being harassed, and it's we have a long history of body shaming and expectation from culturally from girls about how to look and how to behave and how to be. I feel that has changed unfortunately, and I think boys are struggling too. I think body shaming has become global now. Uh, and I couldn't I couldn't do boys and girls book because there was so much to cover already in the girls book. But there should be a book only dedicated to boys. A lot of bullying and shaming. A lot is happening, especially with teenage boys. There's a whole the thin line between queer space and gender is also another space that we have to explore in with teenagers, because it's that space that when a boy is being made fun of because he's effeminate or he's got a squeaky voice, or he's made fun of because he's not doesn't have a mustache in time, or his voice is not changed. So many things, so many things. It's unfortunately boys being made fun of having man boobs. You can't go swimming because you look like this. Hair fall. I think the amount of shaming that's done with boys with hair, balding, hair loss, alopecia, all of this. I feel I don't know. It's like for example, I just watched Ranbir Kapoor, Ranbir Singh. I don't know. I'm so bad at this. He in some series he had to do a thing where he's uh, bare chested and he needed to be 24 hours out not drinking water and only having coffee, caffeinated, because only when you're dehydrated does your muscle look in a particular way.
Yes.
I'm thinking. And I just thought to myself, oh my God, even guys are suffering. That's the only reaction I got from it. Like guys are also suffering. The fact that there was some food award and this guy comes up to get his award and someone asked him, what is your favorite food? And without thinking, this man, I don't remember who he was, he said, you think by looking at me, you think I eat? And I'm like, and everyone in the audience, there was pin drop silence for a second, and the host changed the subject. The fact is that even if you're in an entertainment space, you can't eat because you eat particular kind of food to look in a particular way. So I'm sorry, boys are suffering too. I would want to tell you that it's girls that we had, but I don't know whether to feel sad or unfortunately, it's no longer gender specific.
I'll tell you why. I'll give my own perspective because you are absolutely bang on right. Men suffer in silence.
Yes.
Before we even address the body positivity aspect of a man and around that ecosystem, you know what I would write a book on? Real men should cry. Before I address the fact of body positivity, that's very far, yaar. I first need to accept the fact that I can cry. It's okay.
Yes.
You're not less of a man if you feel. We are to. I think girls are on a very high pedestal on the evolutionary aspect of emotions. Boys are nowhere. The societal condition of
They're
even
nowhere because we never allow them to be anywhere. We never. We still say don't cry like a girl.
absolutely no.
Even
And I'll
now
tell you,
it's being told.
yes, no. You spoke about alopecia because in the book there were so many stories about alopecia. There were so many stories about white hair. There were stories about hair fall.
Lot of hair fall. Yes.
Yeah, when I was in Gurgaon 7-8 years back, I had a very lush long hair till here. Okay, I went to Gurgaon, yeah, because of the weather, because of whatever conditions, because of over smoking or whatever, my hair started falling. Okay,
Right.
and my hair fall I knew was prominent and prevalent because I was facing it, and I used to walk down in the streets and I used to feel that everybody is staring at my head and thinking ये टकला जा रहा है. There are stories like that in the book, right? When people with less hair or white hair or alopecia, when she's wearing a cap, and her friends are like, "What is this fashion that you are that you're following? That you're wearing a cap?" And she's like, "How can I say? How can I tell?" And then she had to go to the doctor to get it treated as a disease. So you're absolutely right.
We laud people, women also, lauding other women who are silently suffering because we have
Absolutely.
no silent suffering. Mothers are not supposed to express. Same
Absolutely.
thing for men. We've decided already that we want conformists. We want people who will suffer, not open their mouth and complain and not express anything and keep everything inside. And we, as a society, as a culture, we reward stoic people. We reward
Absolutely.
people who don't express.
Absolutely.
And it's so problematic. It's so problematic.
Yeah. Because Stoic philosophy, I believe, is equivalent to keto diet. You can't do that forever. I mean, it's just practically impossible. I need my dal chawal with ghee, yaar. This is nonsense.
I love that. I love the keto diet reference.
Sometimes you can do it. It's okay if somebody's suggesting maybe you want to try something different as an experiment. It's fine.
Not
I can't be.
sustainable.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable.
Vinitha, I don't know how to put this question, but I still want to address this question. Okay, let's see how we can address this question. In the stories that I've read in Hug Yourself, and I understand, a lot of the times when girls are facing one issue or the other, be it about the hair and be it about this, and she's like, oh, then I went to my heroine, which is my mom, and she's the magic potion and all that jazz, right? Since I'm a father, I'm a male, I'm a father, though I have a son, I don't have a daughter, I wish I had a daughter. I want to understand the roles of fathers in an ecosystem wherein they have daughters who are young or growing up, wherein the daughters are suffering through some or the other traumatic experiences around the body. I do understand the natural instinct of a girl to go to the mother. But if, as a father, I do come to know that this is something that is bothering my girl, what can I do to make sure that this is more accessible? Because again, I don't want to limit this issue just around one gender, because you are absolutely right. It has to be an inclusive exercise. So now we are coming to the community
Right.
part of it. I want to understand if fathers can also contribute, and if they can, should, and how they can do it.
Uh, uh, First of all, the teenage year for a girl when she's becoming a woman. It's very awkward for the father also to talk to the daughter because the girl is now a sexual being, right? So I think in many ways the father himself distances himself from that relationship. And I'm talking of just in real life, right? You can be your father's daughter as you grow up. At some point in time, when the girl starts menstruating and is a sexual being, has the potential, and her sexuality is so clearly out there, it becomes very hard for the father. Then sometimes it becomes very, most of the time actually, because of the culture we are in, it becomes like, okay, now no more talking to boys. Father will not. It's so difficult for mothers to talk about sexuality to daughters. You think as a mother, I can sit and talk to my daughter, and my daughter is willing to talk about me. It's a hard space to be in, basically. If you have built that relationship, if you're a single dad, what if you're a single dad? You
Absolutely.
know, for what are multiple reasons, and you have a daughter. If you if you are the person who is not accessible to your children, even while they were growing up, there is no way that they're going to build it magically now. Even if you had a very strong relationship with your child, your female child as a male, when she's growing up and she's becoming aware of her sexuality, it takes a lot of work from both parties to keep that relationship the way it is. For you to feel safe, for that daughter to feel secure with the father, and the father to be able to listen to without um, spiraling in fear, because men know what men can be, and the girl may not be, or whatever. It's like it's a difficult space. It's not inaccessible. It really means that you have to, as a parent, there is no female and male parent. If you remove gender out of it, and if you could have that relationship with your child, for instance, a mother and a son, does it become difficult when the son gets older? Can I talk to my son about birds and bees after a point? Will my son want to listen to me from as a mother? I don't know. But if I've built a relationship which is of conversation, where there is boundaries are already laid there, boundaries uh, of each person, you know, and there is vulnerability and exchanges and conversation and respect mutually in that relationship. There is nothing like mother and father, honestly. Having said that, in our culture, uh, we don't, these are things, we're already in a very, very icky space when it comes to sexuality, teenagers. uh, Most parents of teenagers don't realize that the child has access to very sexual content from the time the child is 8 or 9 years old. It's not 13 and 14.
No,
It's
you're
they're
right.
wrong about it anymore. We think a 13 and in grade 8 the teacher will come and say, boys yahan jao, girls yahan jao, and we're going to talk about birds and bees. It's not at the age of 13 anymore. Children are aware of sexuality and aware of everything at the age of 8 and 9. What kind of relationship where they're very innocent, right? But at that age, if you've built a relationship with your child at that age from earlier onwards, where I feel safe in that space with who I am, then there is nothing like father and mother. Honestly, there isn't. And in a world where divorces are so rampant, in a world where single parenting is going on, in a world where children have access to content, what do I bring into the table as a parent to my child? What can I be telling them that they already don't know? What they need to know is that no matter who you are, I love you and I'm here for you. And that is something that has to be told over and over and over and over every single day basis. You need to not worry. You're perfect. I love you as you are. I think you're awesome. I hope you think you're awesome because, and also the parent's relationship with that parent, that my relationship with me is what my children are going to pick on. If I'm going to be constantly dieting and fasting or trying to change my skin color, what relationship am I going to build with my child and say you're perfect? I'm struggling with my imperfection. They can see it. Children pick what you do, your action, not your words. You know, so a lot of things. I was asked sometime earlier in context of this book, what advice would you give? And I'm like, what should a parent tell a child? I'm like, please don't tell children anything. Your Please understand that your 1-year-old, your 2-year-old is the brightest person in the world. Children pick up vibes. You don't even have to talk to them. A child knows when two parents are not talking to each other, even when the parents are being civil to each other, because children know. They pick it up. So what are you bringing to the table? Bring that person there who is also has a great foundation with who they are. Then I can feel safe. As what do you provide as a parent? You have to be able to provide safety. I have to be able to come to you when I'm feeling unsafe. If you're the reason why I'm feeling unsafe, if you're the one saying there are marks kya leke aaya hai? What have you done? Why is your hair looking like this? Why are you wearing clothes like this where I can see this and that? If my relationship with you is of this, if you are not making me feel safe, then what can a father or a mother bring into the table? I don't think mothers make girls feel safe. You think mothers make girls feel safe? They don't. I promise you. Majority women have so much of wounding in their lives that when their daughters become sexual creatures or their sons become teenagers and adolescents and become young adults, the rules change. They bring that wounding back into the relationship. It's a lot of work with yourself, I think, more than, playing roles. There is no role playing any after a point. And you have a very intelligent human being in your life. Respect that human being, even if it's a 2-year-old child, especially if it's a 2-year-old child. You can't talk down to them. They are so bright. If you come with awe to your child and also they come in awe with you, then the relationship is very different.
Beautifully said. Now we are going into a little bit of not a muddy ground. Maybe I think we need more clarification on that. Second Skin, which is a chapter, and Darken My Kajal, which was, by the way, a brilliant graphical representation. I love graphic novels, so I actually love it. Have similar themes of sexual harassment. I mean, if I can, I mean, that's what I could
Yes,
say.
yes,
They have
yes,
similar
absolutely.
themes of sexual harassment as opposed to others. I want you to expound a little bit on these two chapters specifically and the theme of sexual harassment, because where does sexual harassment fall in the ecosystem of body positivity? I couldn't understand, because I thought that sexual harassment is a different thing completely in its own, a vertical, and I couldn't understand. So I want to understand the sensitivity of this thing as well. It could be possible that sexual harassment might lead towards body insecurities as well. That's how you can get into it. So I want
It's
you to expand on this ecosystem, because it's very sensitive
it's
topic.
one can lead to the other, but these stories were trying to convey that the theme was because I never felt good enough. I fell prey to sexual harassment. So Vibha Batra's story is about a person who is cleft lip and did not feel good enough. She's commenting about the fact that her family also made her feel never felt good enough, and therefore she was prey to somebody's advances, someone who, because she never even thought someone could be attracted to her. You can actually be prey to sexual advances because you anyone, any predator can pick on you because they understand that you're not feeling good enough. Uh, Nobody, because he was the captain of some team and stuff like that, and he was
Yeah,
doing it on a
sports.
regular basis, right?
Yeah, he
That was
was.
the story. The fact that he moved, played with her, moved to the next person, moving to the, and he had a reputation of a kind. He was preying on a bunch of girls, but the story thing was that it can become a vulnerability in this space because she felt not good enough. Uh, in in uh, in Suha's story, the story which was uh, the graphic novel story, right?
Yeah, Kajal.
Darken My Kajal.
Dark and my Kajal.
It was this reason we picked this story because this was a good-looking girl,
Yeah.
and good-looking girls should, we all think good-looking girls are having a great time,
Yes.
and this girl is, because she's attractive,
Yeah.
starts to believe that she is inviting people, predators,
Yeah.
whether it's the watchman in the who lets her in because he wants to
Yeah.
touch her,
Or the
or her
teacher.
or her class teacher will come. She beginning to starts believing that her being good looking, and we want to show a range of people. It's
Yeah.
it's a fiction story, largely, but like I'm telling you, almost every story has biographies in it.
Yep.
Each author has taken the story from the well of their past, and the
Absolutely.
fact is that the shape and size of the people approaching her didn't have a particular structure to it. It was a whole range of people.
Yep.
And her beginning to believe that her being attractive was the problem. Was she doing something to draw their attention? Because a young boy playing sports with her was also coming to talk to her in a discotheque. Somebody came to talk to her. The college professor, teacher in school, the watchman. So you know, it doesn't fall into any category, and that even someone who's attractive is struggling with it, and then she wears something loose and thinking that maybe I'm looking particular way, and I'm also wearing something a particular way, and let me start wearing shapeless things because then I'm not attracting anyone.
Yep.
We just want to highlight this story. I'm sorry, only to show that everyone's struggling with it, right?
Yeah.
And there is also Smita Vyas Kumar's story where she's fair, and I think
Yes.
that's a very beautiful story
Yep.
because she talks of both the things. She has a daughter who's dark skinned in the end, and then she then realizes her daughter suffering. All her school years, this young girl suffered. She was ostracized by the rest of the mean girls in her class because they thought she was getting the best parts and she was a
Yep.
teacher's pet, things like so. We wanted to be representation
Yep.
of every story to show that vulnerability is the problem. It's not this or that. It's not having something which is less, or have gray hair or cleft lip or skin color. It's not even those things. Even if you fall into the parameters of what the society wants you to be, even those people are struggling. So Darken My Kajal and Smita's
Second skin.
story, both these stories
Yeah.
are just, again, the tip of the iceberg
Yes.
about just the fact that vulnerabilities and struggles are there.
When Okay, now when someone at this young and impressionable age, and specifically the female gender I'm talking about, the girls and the
Right.
women, specifically the
Mm.
girls, when they do go through such advances which are not mutual, or which are unwelcome, or which are borderline sexual harassments, or in
Right.
fact pure sexual harassments,
Right.
I think, is it safe to say that it does leave a very strong psychological scar, and then the individual goes into a box, and it becomes very difficult for that girl to talk about it, even with her parents?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no two ways about it. I think the whole shame cycle, it's wounding and psychologically scarring, and how you respond to the world, and it just changes so dramatically. You know, yeah, that is,
How
yeah, it
can
is. It's
then how can a parent
mm,
handle the situation in a supportive and nice way? Let's say, because I would want people to know, or parents to know, that this is because I don't want to be oblivious of the fact that the country in which we're living in, such things are not happening. Okay. So I want to just, have a discussion that what then can a nurturing or a loving parent do in this situation to ensure that the kid is somewhat okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as parents, we stop listening. And I think if you have created a safe space for your daughter or your son to come to you and say that I'm being sexually harassed by so and so person or on a consistent level, uh, you know, that itself is such a big deal.
Yeah.
The problem is that we don't even create those safe spaces in our homes. Or very often the blame game starts like, you must have worn something like this. What have you been doing that's making someone follow you or say lewd remarks or constantly pick on you or disbelieving the story? Or the other thing is uh, keeping the girl back home and telling her don't go out. And it's happening in today's world in urban spaces also. It's not that's happening in small towns, and it's happening in very much in this space. And also aggressive way of responding to it, like completely going and beating up that boy or confronting the gang who's been doing it. I don't know uh, what solutions are, but I feel like just listening is a great starting point. Find out what is the listening enough and providing the safety in that home is like a great starting point. What does a girl want from you? What would make her feel safe? Uh, Also, I find, and I may be wrong, that if you're being bullied from a childhood or you've been bullied at some point in time, it's not a one random incident. It's been probably following you for a long time in different ways. And if the girl, so the work has to be with it's a mental health issue, and it's not just mental health of that person. It's like a lot of work needs to be done in the space of self-esteem, in the space of courage, and the whole family as sit together to have a conversation as to where things are going, what are the expectations, and how to work with it in such a way that this can be stemmed out, because that person can, I may find a temporary solution to this. My daughter is 13, 14 years old. Yeah. And I'm going to intervene. I'm going to tell the school, and this person is going to be taken away. Or the college professor who was the predator can be taken away. All of that, right? In some time, that son or daughter of yours is going to be an adult. It's not like the corporate world or the working space or the professional life is clean of these spaces. It's there everywhere. If you don't know how to hold yourself, if you don't know how to, so this is a life skill tool to learn.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for saying that. Absolutely. Yes.
So how do you hold yourself and how do you conduct yourself in a place, and you're the adult? How long can you pull your parents around here or your husband or your boss, right? The world will respond to you in a particular way. You will have to know how to respond to the world. So we need to see as adults right now, when we are talking to teenagers and young adults and children, what lifestyles are we giving them for them to cope in the world? I can
Yes.
intervene as a parent to some limit. How long am I going to be doing that? So yes, I create the safe space to make conversation with my child can come to me. That itself is a huge victory. If you as a parent have a child who's coming to you and telling you that I am struggling and I'm being bullied by so and so person, that means you're a great parent. You've created that space, right? Two, it's a continuous process where you have to, it's about coping for that and sometimes the birds will leave the nest. How long is that bird going to now look for support? So creating that also, those structures, that is self-image, which is so important to know that this is the shit I will take, and beyond this I will not take any shit. Where to stop, where to push back, when to get out. These are important lessons to that will come only with great self-esteem. If I feel I'm not good enough, then I will
Yeah.
take anything. If I'm watching my parents fight, and if my mother is being told or my father has learned is showing particular behavior, what I'm also doing to my children is teaching them that it's okay to take someone perpetrating. It's okay for someone to be violent in your house. They love you anyways. He's a provider. Yeah, he got angry. He's come short tempered or whatever. I'm just saying, I'm giving you very, very vague examples. But as adults, we're creating an ecosystem at home too, right? And the life lessons are being taught here as well.
Yes.
So when parents behave in a particular way at home, what we're practicing, if you can put that in place correctly, then those things usually these things just fall into place. But why this book is a book on in mental health, and why this book is about body positivity is because if you are rooted in being strong about who you are, there's only so much you will take. After a point, you know that this is not okay. I have to get out of the relationship, or I have to get out of the job workspace. I have to get out of this friendship, or I have to get out of this transaction. You will know this. If you don't know this, it's because you have not that has not been grounded and not been strengthened. And that is the role of a parent. I honestly feel more than intervention. Intervention is short term.
Yep.
Short term, please do it because your child needs come to you and find a way to do it in which the the child, everyone learns a lesson and nobody's punished. But there are bigger things to think about. And those bigger things are, how do I send out into this world a child whose feet are planted on the ground for balance, who is also not a perpetrator, right? In this world where we're trying to be, let's be strong and let's win. Let's trample on anyone because winning is more important. Being
Yes.
successful is more important. Being not being a team person being kind is being stupid. In that world, also having a person who's not a perpetrator, that bully has come from someone's home only. That boss who's a lech and who is a predator has come from some home only, right? So not sending out those predators is important. You're keeping us training our sons to understand that every girl is yours. Comes from a home where she is someone's sister and someone's daughter. See her with those eyes. So there's a lot of work that adults need to do in this world. This world is a hard world to be in. And we are all interested in only success stories. We're all interested in making money and do it. It's also how kind can you be? How empathetic can you be? And how do you know that this much I will not take? All these are lessons that you need to put, important lessons that should come from a home. It can't be from a school. It can't be from anywhere. It has to come from home.
Absolutely agree. And I think if you do not, the first point that you mentioned, if you don't have that culture already embedded within your family ecosystem of being open and able, approachability. If that
Yes,
approachability is not there, you can forget about anything that's going to happen in the next whatever years, and you just
yes,
can't intervene and
yes.
solve it because that foundation was never laid.
Never late.
So
Exactly.
a foundation, and
Exactly.
second, again, a very brilliant thing you said, it's a life skill, it's a skill set. Why do we confine ourselves with just the scholastic books that, okay, this is
Yes.
something that you need to, because it is certified, because you get a grade on it? That is
Yes.
nonsensical, right? These are
Yes.
life skills. Communication is a life skill.
Absolute.
I
Absolute.
recently got to know about something called NVC, non-violent communication. That's
Wow.
how partners can talk in a way to make, you're listening, you're understanding, you're putting your needs and demands also, but you're also understanding the other person's perspective. When I got to know about this equation in philosophy,
Wow.
I was like, why was this not taught to me?
Not taught to us. Yeah.
Marriage is a skill set. Because we have seen our parents navigating it on autopilot, that does not mean that it was the right thing to do.
Agreed.
So I mean, a lot of nuances and a lot of things. So brilliant. That is why I wanted to deep dive
Yeah.
into this thing, and because it has so many verticals. And Vinitha, now we're gonna move to the next section. But before that, I'm gonna show
Hmm.
the viewers this beautiful book. Guys, please go and buy yourself a copy of this book. Yeah, the reason Hug Yourself is a great book. And I'll tell you the reason why most of my examples have been centric towards the male gender also, because this is something which is affecting everyone. I understand that people have this notion कि अरे ये तो लड़कियों के problems हैं. I'm being very blunt. This is how the society is. This is
Yeah.
how what people think. And
Yeah.
what we are doing, why the examples we took is to dispel that up to a certain level that no,
Yeah,
It's even worse for men, as I said, because we are not
it
allowed to
is.
cry.
It is.
It
Yes,
is,
I
you
agree.
know. Yeah, so that's why it's very imperative. And please do buy this book. It is a genius, a brilliant, and a much needed book and a resource. I think for parents also, I would like to say specifically that you'll get to know a lot of things. This can go into a psyche and you're like, acha, if, this is how I need to talk. If this or this, that thing happens, so it's very important.
Yeah.
There are so many questions, Vinitha, but there are other sections also that we need to cover. But what a brilliant! I think we have covered a good meat of the curry. When it comes to the book, and
Mm.
enough for people to get
Thanks.
excited to to go forth. Vinitha, now see, we'll come to the next section, which is about you. Now we'll celebrate you. Now we'll get to know about you, your life and your journey. I want you to start telling about yourself, your childhood, your journey, your struggles, anything that you would like to share that you feel people can relate to. So you can start from your childhood, about your parents, about your ecosystem.
Mhm.
How did you get into writing till you publishing your first book? So, from a childhood, family, environment, ecosystem surrounding to you getting into writing and publishing your first book, let's explore this arc first.
Okay, so come from two Malayali parents who are immigrants to Mumbai. So they migrated here because my dad was given transfer, and my parents came to Bombay. And that I think my mother hated the city with all her breaths, just hated. She was completely someone who uh, really loved Kerala, and my mother recreated the universe for herself to survive the city, and she did it through stories. So my mother is an amazing cook. So my mother would, for I think one of her ways she dealt with homesickness of missing her land, of missing her food, was creating that food, that elaborate cooking that she would do uh, with implements that were completely rural. So grinding masala through that stone, pounding. My parents came from Kerala with the you pounding rice
Oh,
and
yeah.
powdering rice. So I'm just thinking now that when they were shifting furniture, they bought a stone and the pounding thing. So my parents came like that. So that is the way we grew up. My mother is a great storyteller. So I think I I have not written a single story in which I not in my head dedicated to my mom or something that she's told me not being part of that story. So my mom is a natural storyteller. Uh, it's a for her everything it was a story. So if she goes to the market to buy doodhi, as unglamorous as a vegetable as bengan or doodhi, my mother would have a story. So she would come back and she would say, like, you know what happened? And then we would all sit down and listen to her, and she would say, this happened. I learned to make stories because of my mother. My mother, in theory, I know the story has to have a beginning, it has to have a middle, it has to have an end. The story arc has to be in a particular way. We know that technically now. But I lived with my mother. So she would talk stories like this. So we knew how to listen to stories. So my mother had a sister, and a sister lived, so we lived in Chembur in Bombay. My mother's sister lived in Andheri. And if these two came together, we would sit down with our hands drying up after eating without moving because we would just sit and laugh and laugh and laugh. So she was a great storyteller. And we were four daughters, so of different age groups. So my mother, to be managing her time in a place where she was doing every work, would put all of us together and she would give us food to eat. And how would she finish the work? She would tell us a story. So we never knew what we were putting in our mouth. We were so immersed in the story. Our mouth would be permanently open and she'd be feeding four of us. So I grew up with stories. To date, I cannot eat without reading a book because I still need a story to eat. I still need that. So that's who I am. Uh, I have been um, telling stories all my life. So from grade one onwards, if the school had staff meeting and all the teachers were missing, they would put 300 children in the school hall and they would keep me in the front and they would go because I could get the whole 300 of them listening to a story. So you can give me a word, and we talked about this. You give me a word, and I can build a story around it. That is my skill set.
Wow.
So I have been doing this thing. So you can say red, and I'll tell you a whole story on red. So that's what I can do. You can tell me, you give me any word. So every year, even now, uh, there is this poetry month in Instagram in the month of April. They give you a prompt and you can write a story. I'm part of a group even now. It's called Bowl Collective, and we meet once a month. And at the end of the month, and before we leave, we're given a word, and we all go back and create a story and come back. So this is my wordsmithing thing. This is me. But I did not know that this is, I'll be working in the space of stories. I come from a typical middle class South Indian background. And middle class South Indian, if you know that we are engineers and doctors, and that's the space we go into. It's education and honor that.
Yeah.
So for me my parents wanted me to be a doctor. They were most disappointed when I wanted to do art. So from not even doing art, I ended up doing arts. Art stream is like my father would have been so disappointed in me. Like, kya kar rahi hai? Because I was so bright, right? And my sisters all have done really well in life. My one sister is right now a dentist, the other one is the head of department in Columbia University, the third is a vice president in a bank. So everyone's doing the right things. There was one person who was a journalist, and that was me. So I moved. I also never thought that I would be writing. Writing is supposed to be something that you do as a hobby. So I was doing just that. When I was, I think, 17 years old, it was junior college when my first story got published, and I got paid for it. And that was been my first reason why I started writing, thinking, oh, it's fun for me. I can write stories. It's very easy for me. I wrote a story, it got published, I got paid for it. Backstory is that many years later, the Bal Bharati bought the story, so it's being taught in school. That story is now being taught. But at that point of time, I sold it for a very small amount of money. So that was my first start of writing a story, getting paid for it. Happened over there. I did my master's in sociology, went on to applying to do my PhD. And then for some reason, I was still in this country. My dad didn't want me to travel to the US. And I was really angry with everyone. And just to spite him, as a teenager, I chose to not do my PhD, and I got into what I was anyways doing. I was a freelance journalist, even as a student. A very shy, quiet person. I never had any boyfriend because I never thought I was good enough to have a boyfriend. So I would study, go back home, and I was also writing and sending it to publishing houses and newspapers. I was getting published. So getting into journalism was the thing that I was anyways doing. I never thought I'll do that for a living. But when my father stopped me from going to do my PhD in the US, I had a full scholarship. And he said, no, you do your PhD in India. I stopped everything and I got into Bing. I joined a newspaper and I got into journalism. So that's my starting of it. But I was always writing stories. And yeah,
When did
by the time I
you
got married,
when did you realize that your mother's that skill that she had of being a storyteller, when did
yes,
it went into your consciousness ki, oh yes, this is where it is coming from? When you used to write, when you started writing and when you started sending these stories to various publishers and magazines, when was that moment when you realized ki, oh, this has come from my mom? And when you did realize, did you really understand the gravity of what your mother had consciously or unconsciously given it to you as a gift, as that powerful gift? Let's talk
I
about that.
don't think I never thought anything about I only thought it was my mother's story. So my mother told a lot about her childhood. And I'm a visual listener, so I listen and I imagine immediately. My first stories were a lot about my mother's childhood. So my first series of book, the first 9 books that I came out with, came out from a series called Kerala Mystic, and they actually a lot of them came from my mother's childhood. What I imagined my mother's childhood was, and I created my own stories, but a lot of it, the backbone of the stories was my mother's own childhood. I never thought I could write beyond my mother's stories.
Hmm.
I myself thought I couldn't do it, and so it was a lesson in competence when I joined a company called ILNFS, and ILNFS had a project with UNICEF, and I wrote out more than 100 stories for UNICEF. And these stories are part of the curriculum story that they work with in rural India, where for every curriculum subject, there are 10 stories to help a reluctant reader understand the concept better. And I was just creating stories after stories after stories at that point in time. And they had no reference of my mother's childhood. So my first lesson in my competence as a creator was reaffirmed with this job when I worked full time with Alan FM, which is a very corporate job actually, but I was doing that. But my mother is there in every story because some part of her, the way of she narrated is always there. So every book, if I could dedicate it, then it will be dedicated to her because she was that person. And she also took great pride in the fact that my books were out and I was talked about. I was very happy. So she had bragging rights with me a little later. Despite, initially being very sad that I wasn't working as a civil servant in some place or hiding a bank, in the end, she was very proud of me. Yeah.
How was your relationship with the father? Why did he not allow you to pursue your PhD overseas? And why did he emphasize on doing it in India?
My father was very, very fond of me. Actually, both my parents are very fond of me.
Hmm.
So I was their designated child. I was the child who was, in a very patriarchal system that we have, कि लड़का नहीं है तो who will look after us when we get old? So I
Absolutely.
was the designated daughter. I was supposed to get married and bring a ghar jawai home. I was supposed to be that person. My dad just thought that if I go to the US, he would never see me again. I wouldn't come back to India. And they were very scared of that. And I don't think they were thinking about me, they were thinking about she won't come back. So yeah, I was very angry about it. My dad is a writer, by the way. In a sense, everything he documented. So I
Oh,
always
interesting.
feel like my mother was a storyteller, but my father documenting things was my father. So a lot about him is also there when I create stories. How to put that in, how to document things, how you're constantly looking and very silent. My mother was very friendly person, talking all the time. My father is very quiet. So the quietness comes from him. So I'm also not a person who will chatter. I will watch and observe, and I'm constantly looking at human nature, constantly imagining this person and wondering what their life backstory is. So I'm also doing that like my father. So I feel like it's a great combination.
Yeah, this reminds me of the Shiva and Shakti element. That is what we have grown, that one is
Yes,
the active participant, which is the Shakti,
yes,
and one is the very quiet and a very
quiet.
preserving
Yes,
masculine energy, which is Shiva, which is absolutely beautiful. I think that is how relationships, if you have both of these, so you learn the art of creativity from your mother,
yes,
creation, and putting that energy through a proper process via a father. That's a beautiful gift, Vinitha.
absolutely,
That's a beautiful gift.
absolutely.
I mean, that's
It is.
yeah, that's a vardhan, as we can say. Because see, I believe that skills, any skill, be it a child being in sport or be it someone writing or reading, has to come from what they see from their parents from the childhood, right? If
Right.
somebody sees their father is running every day and he's a runner, he would want or she would want to run and take that. So I think that's a very
Yeah,
good blessing that you had.
yeah,
How was your
yeah.
relationship with your sisters, and where were you in the hierarchy of ages? You were the eldest, youngest, middle child, or what? One, two, three, four.
Third child. I have two older sisters and one younger sister. And I think I think the age gap between my elder sister is 6 years. So we grew up, we weren't very close to each other when we were growing up. I was very close to my younger sister. I was very, very fond of my second elder sister. My eldest sister, who's 6 years older than me, uh, we were in awe of her. We were afraid of her.
Mm.
She was that person who topped all grades every time. She was that person who we all felt lesser than her. And so she grew in a bubble. We thought we were in awe of her. My second sister was extremely beautiful. So we looked up to, I she was my glamour quotient in my life. I was 5 years younger than her. I look up to her for that. And she was also very, very sweet, kind person. So she would always look out for me when I was in school. My younger sister and I thought I was very close to my younger sister because we played together. We had the same, we grew up together in that way. So yeah. So four of us. I have one younger sister.
So basically, so you grew up in an environment wherein you first got these basic, fundamentals from your parents, be it the terms of process of writing and imagination and storytelling that you got from a mother. So you were always so your environment and ecosystem was wherein nobody stopped you from doing anything per se. You were allowed to write, you were allowed to pursue what you wanted,
Mm.
or were there frictions in
There was
specific your decisions that you
lot
couldn't
of
take?
disapproval. There was a lot of disapproval. Disapproval is so tough on a youngster. I mean, especially when we're growing up. I would say my generation came from an age of obedience. Our job was to please our parents, right? At
Yes.
least my generation was that.
Yeah.
Like, if your parents were happy, then you were okay. My parents were very unhappy with what I was deciding. I was not. It was not easy. But I think I was generally a sweet-tempered girl, so they're very fond of me. And I also am known to be a very kind person. So they considered me to be stupid also. So it was like this girl, what will she do? How will she look out for herself? And I think to date, this is a sentiment that is still goes on in my family that, she's a kind person, she's stupid. What would she know? She's like that. So they're very protective of me. They always tell that I didn't have any life skills to look after myself in the world where I was, kind and nice. So yeah, I think kind people meet kind people. I don't think kind people meet unkind people. I really don't think so. I have only met kind people all my life.
And
So yeah.
even if they do meet unkind, I think other person's behavior can also make you introspect and look into yourself, and you can also emulate sometimes when you see that okay, other person is always like this, be it kind, be it unkind. So I think that is a great thing. You have married, Vinitha, right? You have kids,
I have two kids. I have two teenagers right now.
boys, girls.
I have one. My eldest is a daughter, a girl. She's 19 now, and my son is 17. Both of them are think that they are my parents. That's the way they walk around.
No, where are they right now? Are they pursuing their education overseas, or they're
They're,
in
they're in Bombay studying. Yeah, grade 12 and second year BA. Very
okay.
much in Bombay. Yeah.
Vinitha, I'm going to ask something. This might sound very strange, but how are you as a mother? Describe yourself as a mother.
You should ask my children this. I would certify I would certify myself as the best mother on earth. But I know that I've made so many mistakes. And my kids come and tell me things that always startle me. And I always think that I tried really hard to do the right things. I uh, put into practice what I thought I should have worked on. And I think I was a good mother, but I don't think, um, I don't know. I think this is something my children should answer. I'm sure you'll be surprised to know, or I'll probably be surprised to know that I maybe wasn't such a great mother.
Makes sense. No, definitely, I would love to ask them, you know. And once this episode is out and once we do share, I would love to know their feedbacks as well. Vinita, now we come to the last segment wherein we would ask you to read something from the book. So now the stage is yours. I'm going to go on mute. You can decide what part you're going to recite and read. Up to you.
I really want to read from Mallika Dua's Foreword. I
Yeah.
think it just says so powerfully what I tried to convey and try to put together the theme of as to why we did a book like this. Because Mallika Dua is an influencer, and I think pretty. She knows exactly who she is, and you read her forward, you'll be so surprised as to how vulnerable she is. Growing up, there was no term of endearment that my parents didn't use for me, and there was no term of disgust or shame that I didn't use for myself. I'd like to believe it's been a few years since I've, well, grown up, and I'd be lying if I said I don't shame myself even today. I just shame myself for writing this trite, cringy opening. Cringe openings by a cringe girl with a cringe double chin and cringe frizzy hair. I don't really believe that deep down. I've just written this the way I speak to about myself. What an unkind way to speak to about someone who does so much for me every day. I wouldn't let anyone speak to me the way I speak to me. And yet, I do. If you're bored enough to read in life a foreword, you'll agree with me as I take the liberty to declare that I know I'm not the only one who talks to herself like this. I hope you don't agree with me. If you do, hug yourself. My foreword, my foremost thought upon reading the manuscript was a loud, what the fuck? Why didn't I have this when I was a teenager? When I got over it and wiped my cathartic tears and began writing, hug yourself is an intervention, a gentle, friendly, loving shout to yourself, just for being, not for looking or doing. This wonderful bouquet of vulnerabilities and victories is that cool older sibling slash mentor slash imaginary friend, if that's your jam, that hears you out, sans judgment as you come of age. I'm so glad kids today will have a friend and a voice in these stories as they navigate a filter, filler, trolling, perfection filled world. I know I will. While there's enough and more discourse on positivity online, there isn't an Ozempic fueled reel or a shapewear advertisement that won't interrupt. Even as someone who makes a living and a name from social media, I must declare the cheap thrill the chosen format of Hug Yourself gives me. Thank God this is a physical book. Kids, please read the book. You can't scroll up and down. No one tries to tell you things you don't need. And it's great for mental health. A lot of discourse on body image rests on the denial of it. I think that's so cool. The whole, if you're not XYZ, you're beautiful. I have never understood why. It is almost as if someone speaking about their body, the way they feel and experience it, is too much of an inconvenience. Let us just call it beautiful and move on, because everything ultimately ought to be beautiful now. Cries in concealer and face trim. By not denying body image, Hug Yourself treats teenagers with the autonomy and respect growing adults deserve. It never talks down to them like their feelings right now are somewhat invalid and non-serious because most of their life lessons are scheduled to happen later. It's exactly the kind of education and dialogue schools don't or didn't provide and instead delegated to the real world, quote unquote, a place almost everyone has a ticket to but refuses to pack for. In the real world, I'm seen as someone who is a body positive, radically accepting, and almost celebratory of herself. In my inner world, I spend thousands every month to have my therapist remind me to be kind to myself, to remember I'm so much more than what I believe I lack. All this to dive again to Instagram and learn that I lack Korean glass skin, a Turkish rhinoplasty, a Brazilian butt lift, and an Australian koala, and God knows what else. For me, Hug Yourself has begun to heal one, the 6-year-old Mallika, whose mama gave her a boy cut while other girls had long, beautiful hair and bows put in it. Two, the 11-year-old Mallika, who started to destroy her natural curls with heat because boys only like girls with straight hair. Three, the 13-year-old Mallika, whose boyfriend told her she had a beard. Four, the 18-year-old Mallika, who was dumped for a skinnier girl, also named Mallika. Five, the 21-year-old Mallika, who lost half her hair to traumatic life events and genetics. Six, the 24-year-old Mallika, who was convinced of it was her perfectly tongued and stoned and sprayed salon curls and not her above average copywriting skills that made her boss's favorites. Next, the 26-year-old Mallika, who believed she was body positive and a total babe because the internet told her so one day. And the 30-year-old Mallika, who believed that she was unattractive, ugly, feminazi, with a fat face and no trace of a neck because the internet told her the next day. The Mallika today hopes to be a better friend to herself. This book is for every teenager, parent, sibling, educator, and guardian. Most importantly, this is for every troll, the most brutal of which lives within us. I think this is it.
This was
Amazing.
very beautiful. This was so. See, I'll tell you why this was also beautiful from a layman's perspective, from a reader's perspective, from something that is coming from a public figure. There's a difference when a public figure comes up and says, "Ki yes, I know depression because I was also depressed." बिल्कुल
Yeah.
fact है. But there is a second thing when somebody goes deep in details the problems that
Yeah.
they have gone through. When I
Yeah.
thought that it was a forward of Mallika Dua, I thought it was something very funny. It would be something very,
Yes.
chalky and something very nice and sparkly. I
Yes.
had no idea that she would spill the beans in 13 these many points when she had mentioned all her insecurities. Just out of curiosity, how did you get her to write this forward for the book?
Oh, this was this is Penguin's job.
Acha, acha.
Penguin
Okay.
got her to manage, asked her, and yeah, I like so grateful that she wrote the foreword
Yeah.
because it was not it was over and beyond what I expected that she would come up with. It
Yes.
was very vulnerable, and I was in tears when I read it. I was really in tears when I read it. I was like, wow,
Even I felt very
yeah.
heavy. I felt really heavy. Because it's the pointers, that little girl, and
You should,
I could imagine that little girl, that chubby, cute little girl. Because kids are cute when they're also
yeah,
chubby. It's a
yeah,
fact. So
yeah,
I could
yeah,
visualize
yeah, yeah,
that, and it made me so sad.
yeah. Same. I was very moved when I read it. Yeah.
Yeah, Vinitha, this has been beautiful. I mean, we have had some. I hope you enjoyed it. I mean, I thought
I
obviously do enjoy.
really, I yeah, I really, really had. It was such an immersive, uh, very nice conversation. I've done 3, 4 podcasts, but nothing has been as close to how deeply we went into the whole subject. I can see so clearly how you read the book thoroughly, you felt things, and I know it was a very meaningful podcast for you, and therefore became very, very meaningful for me too.
Absolutely.
Thank you for doing the work you do. If we didn't have you, these conversations wouldn't have had gone beyond the pages of the book. So I'm
Yeah,
really grateful for the
yeah,
conversation. Thank you so
yeah.
much for doing the work you do.
Thank
Really,
you.
honestly,
And
grateful.
विनीता थैंक यू अगेन वी हैव दो घंटे हो गए आपने इतना टाइम दिया 2.5 घंटे हो गए आई थिंक थैंक यू
Thank you
फॉर
so
टेकिंग
much.
आउट सो मच टाइम